Have you ever eaten a perfectly healthy gut-healing meal? Maybe a big, beautiful kale salad and a cold glass of kombucha, only to look and feel 6 months pregnant by 8 p.m.? You unbutton your pants, you rub your stomach, and you think, what is wrong with me? I am eating all the right things. You aren't crazy, you aren't failing at your diet, and your body is not broken, but you might be feeding the completely wrong part of your digestion. I'm Diane, a clinical dietitian, and in my practice, I work primarily with men and women over 55 who are trying to actively manage their health through food. Every single week, I see patients who are desperately trying to fix their aging, uncomfortable digestive systems by following the loudest health advice on the internet. Eat more fermented foods, take massive doses of probiotics, and load up on fiber. But for a very specific, very common group of people, those exact superfoods are acting like gasoline on a fire. Today, I am going to show you exactly why your healthy gut routine is causing your severe evening bloating and how you can actually reset your stomach without the pain. But before we get into the biology of why this happens, let me ask you a quick question. Take a look in your fridge or pantry right now. Do you currently have kombucha, sauerkraut, or any snack bar heavily labeled as keto-friendly or high fiber? Let me know in the comments. I bet a lot of you do, because we've all been sold the same message. Let me tell you about a patient I recently worked with. Let's call her Joanne. Joanne is a 61-year-old retired teacher from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Like a lot of women in their 60s, she started noticing that her digestion just wasn't what it used to be. Things were slowing down. She felt heavier after meals. So, Joanne did exactly what the magazines and the health blogs told her to do. She started her morning with a 50 billion CFU probiotic capsule. She swapped her afternoon soda for a sparkling fermented kombucha, and she started eating these massive, raw, cruciferous salads for lunch to get her fiber up. And the result? It was an absolute disaster. By 4 p.m., her stomach was so painfully distended it was hard to the touch. By 8 p.m., she was in sweatpants, lying on the couch with a heating pad, feeling entirely defeated. She sat in my office and told me, "Diane, I am doing everything right. I gave up the junk food. I am eating the ultimate gut health diet, but I feel worse now than I did when I was eating drive-through cheeseburgers." I had to explain to Joanne what I want to explain to you right now. For her specific gut environment, she wasn't healing her digestion. She was actively throwing a massive catered banquet for bacteria that were living in the wrong neighborhood. To understand why your healthy food is betraying you, we have to talk about the geography of your gut. Think of your digestive tract like a long highway. Most of the food you eat goes down your esophagus, into your stomach where acid breaks it down, and then it moves into your small intestine. Your small intestine is incredibly important. This is where you actually absorb your nutrients, your vitamins, your minerals, your proteins. In a perfectly healthy, functioning body, the small intestine is supposed to be a relatively quiet, fast-moving zone with very low levels of bacteria. The real party is supposed to happen much further down the road, in your large intestine, or your colon. That is where your microbiome primarily lives. That is where trillions of beneficial bacteria hang out, waiting to feast on the leftover fibers that you couldn't digest. But here is what nobody tells you about aging and digestion. As we get older, especially past our 50s, several things start to shift. Our stomach acid naturally decreases. Our digestive motility, the sweeping muscle contractions that push food along the highway, can slow down. Medications like acid blockers for heartburn, rounds of antibiotics, or even just chronic stress can drastically alter this environment. And when that highway slows down, something very sneaky happens. The bacteria that are supposed to stay firmly planted in your large intestine start migrating upwards. They travel north. They set up camp in your small intestine. This is a clinical condition known as SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Now, why does this matter for your bloating? Think about what happens when bacteria eat. When bacteria consume fiber and sugars, they ferment them. And the byproduct of fermentation is gas. If this fermentation happens down in your large intestine, where it belongs, it's usually fine. Your body is equipped to handle it, and the gas eventually passes naturally. But when you have an overgrowth of bacteria trapped high up in your small intestine, and they start fermenting your food, you have a major structural problem. The small intestine is narrow. It is not designed to expand like a balloon. So when gas is rapidly produced right there in the middle of your abdomen, it gets trapped. It pushes outward against your abdominal wall. It presses up against your diaphragm, which is why some people even feel a little short of breath or experience chest pressure when they are severely bloated. So, bring this back to Joanne's diet. Joanne was walking around with a sluggish digestive system and a quiet case of bacteria living in her small intestine. Then, she started pouring down kombucha, which is full of live bacteria and sugar. She started swallowing massive capsules of probiotics, adding billions of new bacteria to a place that was already overcrowded. And she started eating huge bowls of raw kale, which is incredibly difficult to break down, providing endless food for that overgrowth to ferment. She wasn't fixing her gut. She was force-feeding a bacterial overgrowth in a narrow tube, creating a localized gas explosion every single afternoon. Often, people like Joanne will go to their primary care doctor and complain about this daily bloating. They'll have standard blood work done, maybe a scan, and everything comes back perfectly normal. The doctor might say, well, your tests are fine, make sure you're eating enough fiber and maybe try a probiotic. It's incredibly frustrating because you leave the office feeling completely dismissed, clutching a recommendation that is actually going to make your problems significantly worse. That is why it is so crucial to understand your own biology. If you know why the gas is happening, you can stop blindly following internet trends and start making strategic choices. This is the great paradox of modern gut health. The foods that are clinically proven to be wonderful and protective for a perfectly healthy large intestine can be the exact same foods that cause agonizing pain for a compromised small intestine. You cannot feed a damaged gut the same way you feed a healthy one. So, what are the specific dietary triggers that are causing this rapid, painful bloating? There are 3 incredibly popular, healthy foods that I see causing the most damage in my practice. And the second one is a trendy snack you probably think is helping your blood sugar. Let's look at the first major trigger: fermented foods. I am talking about kombucha, kefir, kimchi, and raw sauerkraut. Right now, these are considered the holy grail of modern nutrition. We are told they are mandatory for a healthy gut. But remember the highway analogy we just talked about? If your small intestine is already experiencing a severe traffic jam of bacteria, pouring a high-density, bacteria-rich drink like kombucha down the hatch is exactly like sending 10 more buses directly into that traffic jam. You are adding thousands of live organisms to a space that is desperately trying to clear them out. And there is a secondary hidden risk with fermented foods that I see constantly in my older patients. Let's call her Helen. Helen is a 59-year-old from Raleigh, North Carolina. She started eating 2 tablespoons of raw kimchi every day with her lunch to improve her digestion. Not only did her stomach blow up like a balloon, but she started getting a mysterious red flush across her chest, a runny nose, and sudden anxiety after eating. Helen didn't have a food allergy. She was dealing with histamine intolerance. Fermented, aged foods are incredibly high in histamines. When your gut lining is irritated by bacterial overgrowth, your body often stops producing enough of the enzyme, called DAO, that breaks down histamines. So, by eating the ultimate gut-healing food, Helen was actually overloading her system with inflammatory histamines her aging gut could no longer process. Now, let's move to the second trigger. This is the one that catches so many people off guard, especially those who are actively trying to manage their blood sugar. Trigger number 2 is isolated prebiotic fiber, specifically ingredients like inulin or chicory root fiber. Let me show you how this happens. I once cared for a man I'll call Arthur. Arthur is a 68-year-old retired engineer from Austin, Texas. Arthur was doing a fantastic job trying to lower his A1C, so he started buying those popular keto-friendly or low-net-carb protein bars and snacks. If you flip those packages over, you will often see they boast an impressive 10 to 15 grams of fiber per serving. But food manufacturers don't get that fiber by packing the bar with broccoli. They use cheap, extracted, highly fermentable fibers like inulin or chicory root to keep the carbohydrate count artificially low. Here's what I want you to understand about your body. Prebiotics are literally fertilizer for bacteria. That is their biological job. In a perfectly healthy colon, a little bit of natural prebiotic fiber is wonderful. But isolated inulin in a packaged snack is like a concentrated bomb of rapid fermentation fuel. When Arthur ate his daily keto bar, that concentrated inulin hit the bacteria trapped in his small intestine. Because it ferments so rapidly, it produced a massive volume of gas in a very tight space within 30 minutes. Arthur thought he was having a heart issue because the trapped gas was pressing so hard against his diaphragm. Once we pulled those artificial fiber snacks out of his pantry, his evening pain completely vanished. If you are buying processed foods that claim to be incredibly high in fiber, I want you to check the ingredient list today. If you see chicory root fiber, inulin, or massive amounts of sugar alcohols, and you suffer from daily bloating, you have likely found your culprit. And that brings us to the third dietary trap, the massive raw salad. When people want to get healthy, the very first thing they do is buy a giant plastic clamshell of raw spinach, kale, or cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower. But we have to respect how human biology ages. Raw vegetables are packed with cellulose, a very tough structural fiber. To break down cellulose, your body requires strong chewing, highly acidic stomach acid, and powerful digestive enzymes. As we cross into our late 50s and 60s, our stomach acid naturally weakens. If you are also taking a daily antacid or an acid reducer like omeprazole, your stomach acid is even weaker. When you eat a massive bowl of raw kale, your stomach struggles to break down that tough cellular wall. So, the plant matter moves into your small intestine largely intact. Because your own digestive juices couldn't break it down, it just sits there. And what happens to undigested food sitting in a warm, bacteria-filled tube? It ferments. It rots. It feeds the overgrowth. You do not have to eat massive bowls of raw, tough greens to be healthy. In fact, if your gut is compromised, eating raw salads is actively preventing your intestinal lining from healing. If any of this is sounding painfully familiar to you, I want you to take a specific action. The next time you sit down with your doctor or your gastroenterologist, do not just say, "I feel bloated." Bloating is too vague, and it gets dismissed. Ask your doctor this exact question. Could my chronic evening bloating be a sign of SIBO, and do you recommend I take a lactulose breath test? A breath test measures the exact gases, hydrogen and methane, that those displaced bacteria produce in your small intestine. It gives you clinical data instead of just guessing. But what do you do in the meantime? If you have to pull back on the kombucha, the keto bars, and the giant raw salads, how do you actually heal your gut without starving your body of nutrients? There is a very specific soothing reset protocol I use with my patients to quiet down the inflammation and starve the overgrowth, all while keeping your digestive tract moving smoothly. Let me show you exactly what to eat instead. So, what do you do right now? If you need to stop the kombucha, the heavily fortified keto bars, and the giant raw salads to stop this daily pain, how do you actually heal your gut without starving your body of essential nutrients? In my clinical practice, I use a very specific soothing reset protocol with my patients. The goal here is simple. We want to quiet down the inflammation, stop feeding the bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine, and keep your digestive tract moving smoothly so things can naturally clear out. You don't need a complicated, miserable diet. You just need to make 3 strategic swaps to take the burden off your aging digestion. Let me show you exactly what to eat instead. Swap number 1. We are taking out the probiotic drinks and replacing them with soothing teas and broths. I want you to completely pause the kombucha, the kefir, and any heavy probiotic supplements for the time being. Remember, we need to stop sending buses into the traffic jam. Instead, I want you to introduce high-quality bone broth and strong ginger tea. Bone broth is incredible because it contains collagen and amino acids like glutamine, which actively help repair the delicate lining of your intestinal wall without requiring your body to do heavy digestive lifting. And ginger tea is one of my absolute favorite clinical tools. Ginger is what we call a natural prokinetic. That means it gently stimulates the sweeping muscle contractions in your stomach and small intestine. It actually helps push stagnant food and trapped bacteria downward, where they belong. A hot cup of ginger tea 30 minutes before a meal is a fantastic way to wake up a sluggish digestive tract. Swap number 2. We are trading the raw roughage for cooked comfort. I am never going to tell you to stop eating vegetables. Vegetables are vital, but we need to change their structural integrity. Instead of forcing your stomach to break down cold, tough, raw kale or raw broccoli, I want you to pre-digest it with heat. Swap those massive raw salads for easily digestible cooked vegetables. Think sautéed zucchini, roasted and peeled carrots, or steamed spinach. When you boil, steam, or roast a vegetable, the heat breaks down that tough cellular wall for you. By the time it reaches your stomach, your digestive system barely has to work. It can simply absorb the vitamins and let the soft fiber pass through gently, without leaving intact plant matter behind to ferment and cause gas. Swap number 3. We are removing extracted fibers and bringing back gentle whole foods. It is time to clear out the pantry. Any processed snack bar, protein shake, or low-net carb treat that lists chicory root fiber or inulin on the back needs to go in the trash. We have to cut off the rapid fermentation fuel supply. Instead, when you need a snack or a touch of sweetness, I want you to reach for simple, gentle, low FODMAP whole foods. A handful of fresh blueberries, half of a slightly green banana, or even a small handful of macadamia nuts. These foods provide natural, gentle nutrition that absorbs easily in the small intestine without triggering a massive gas explosion. Remember Joanne from earlier? The 61-year-old retired teacher who was doing everything right but felt 6 months pregnant every single night? Once I explained this mechanism to Joanne, a massive wave of relief washed over her. We immediately pulled the daily probiotic capsules and the kombucha. We swapped her massive lunch salads for warm, nourishing bowls of chicken soup with well-cooked carrots and zucchini. And we replaced her afternoon high-fiber snack bars with a simple cup of ginger tea and a few berries. The results were not subtle. Within just 10 days, Joanne's 8 p.m. bloating completely vanished. Her stomach was flat again by bedtime. She wasn't carrying extra fat around her middle. She had been carrying trapped air. Her energy skyrocketed, the pressure against her diaphragm disappeared, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was actually in control of her own body. What I want you to understand about your body is that it is always trying to communicate with you. Painful evening bloating is not a sign that you are failing at your diet, and it is certainly not a sign that you just need to try harder. It is simply a signal that the current environment is overwhelmed, and you are feeding the wrong part of your digestion. My mission in my practice and on this channel is to help you stop fighting your aging body and start working with it. You have so much more control over how you feel than you have been led to believe. Now, I want to hear from you. Comment, starting today, if you are going to swap out one of these irritating, highly fermented foods to give your gut a break. Comment, asking my doctor if you are going to bring up a SIBO breath test at your next medical visit. Or comment, sending this if you know a friend, a sister, or a husband who is struggling with mystery evening bloating and desperately needs this information. Please share this video with anyone who needs it, save it so you can review these swaps before your next grocery trip, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more clinical, science-backed nutrition that actually makes sense for your body. I'll see you in the next video.